So here's a local image from a trail that I hike on almost every day. And there are some beautiful fern patches that sprout in the spring and summer and fall. And I love just the patterns of ferns and the sort of the fractal nature of ferns, patterns within patterns. The challenge with this image is these little white flowers that just couldn't get an angle where they weren't kind of showing through. The other thing is that the color that my camera captured is not quite what I want, what it looked to me. It was cooler green, much richer and darker, and this just looks a little too flat and sterile. The other thing is that it's on the noisy side, so I'll have to apply some noise reduction as well. So I'm going to press, well, we're in develop already, so I will go into the basic panel and just get my basic adjustments. I'm going to try, yeah, I think I like this profile a little bit better. It pulls out some more color. Definitely needs to be cooler in order to get rid of that yellow cast that it has. So I'm going to go in the other direction, cool the image way down. And that's what I'm looking for, more of that pure green tint or color that that ferns tend to have, and that I want this image to have. So we're down around 4,000, something like that. Let me pull down my blacks. I'm going to hold on the Option key. And I'm not really concerned about the deep shadows in here. Those can go dark. There's no detail in there that I have to worry about. I'm really going for this rich look. Push up the whites a little bit. Something around there. A little bit of clarity. Definitely some texture. And I'm just going to hold off the vibrance for now because I do like the color that I'm getting, and so don't want to push it too much. Okay, next thing I want to do is let's just get rid of that noise. That's a little bit distracting. So come down to detail. We can do sharpening and noise reduction at the same time. I'm going to start with noise reduction. It doesn't really matter, but I'd like to get rid of that sort of noisy look. So I'm going to push up the luminance and raise the color a little bit as well. And that's a lot better. I'll zoom in again. Let's go back out to 200. I'm sorry, let's go back out to 100. There we go. And then I will adjust the sharpening. So sharpening amount 50, that's pretty good already. I think that's the default, and that's a good place to start. Now radius here, we don't have to go too low with radius because we don't really have a lot of micro detail. I really want the edges of the ferns and these lines that you see here, but those that's not very fine detail. So I don't want to make it too detailed. I want to preserve kind of the feel of the leaves themselves. So I'm going to leave the radius at 1.4 where it is. I'll leave the detail slider where it is because usually this is something that you would use when you're using a lower radius. But I certainly want to use the masking. Hold down the Option key, push the masking up. And you see already that Lightroom is picking out just the edges of the leaves and the major details. Okay, so far it's pretty good. Let's look at our before and after. That's our before, and that's our after. And just to double check that this is the, actually that's the before. So I'm going to click on Reset Settings here and copy history, step settings to before. As I've mentioned before, I have developed this image many times in many demos and workshops, and so I don't have to keep searching for what the original before is like. But in your case, with an image that you're working on for the first time or that you've just developed one time, your before will always take you back to the beginning. So now we can see before and after. Okay, I'm going to come down and add some more contrast. I want a little more depth to the image, and I'm going to do that with the tone curve. And I'm just going to select the medium contrast tone curve. And I think that does what I'm looking for, just a little more depth without making it too aggressive. So that's without it, and that's with it. It gives us a little more definition, darkens our darks a little bit more. Now I want to clean it up a little bit, get rid of some of these little white specks that you see around. So I'll do this fairly quickly. For these smaller ones, I may just use the normal heel. So I'll click on that. And I'll click on this one here. And maybe this little white one there. There's a little one on the edge right there. And this one didn't work out so well, so we'll zoom into that. You see that it's grabbing from the edge over here. So I'm going to click on the actual heel where I applied the heel, and then we can move this around to get something that looks a little better without spending too much time there. Okay, that's better. Press Q again. I think that's it for now. These we're going to deal with separately with the AI remove, because that's going to be a little bit more difficult. Okay, so we'll zoom in. And then this one over here, I'm going to switch the mode of the heel tool to the AI remove. And then let's select this there like so. Click on remove. Now, remember to have the use generative AI checked. That actually uses the AI. And then depending on the result we get, we may want to step through the variations. You get 3 variations every time you engage the tool, and you can always regenerate 3 more. So this one still left a little bit of a white spot back there. So variation number 2, much better. So let's do this over here. The idea behind the AI remove in terms of what you select is to give the AI enough context so that it knows, of course, what you want to remove, but also what's around it so that it can fill in the gaps. If you don't give it enough context, then it's not sure exactly how to, reassemble everything, as it were, or give you a result that looks natural. So again, here, better, or I should say good. I'm going to go in here. Okay, let's go in here. I'm not going to worry about these down here for now. We'll zoom out and see what that looks like. Okay, and then these flowers here, which I really tried to avoid, but there was nothing I could do. Notice that I went over a little piece of the fern leaf, so I'm going to come back and include more of it so that the AI knows what that is and that I want to keep it. Perfect. And then I'll come over here, remove. So I think a lot of this algorithm depends on what you're selecting and in what way. Notice that I'm really making sure that I am selecting the flower, the white flower, even though we cover the leaf, but it's kind of obvious what it is that I want to remove. And so let's see. I think that's it. The other thing that we'll see how this works, this little leaf here, that little curl. Let's see what happens if I just select that whole thing like this. Okay, that's a little better. It's not as distracting. Let's see what the other variations are. Number 2 and number 3. I'm not crazy about any of them, so we'll click on generate again, and this will have the AI do some more work for us. And let's see variation 2 and variation 3. So I think that one is actually okay. We'll zoom out, and that is much better. I still am not crazy about this down here, so I'm going to press Q and make my brush a little smaller and see what happens there. All right, perfect. And I think this one can be a little better as well. Or I should say that we should probably get rid of that as well. Okay, much better. Okay, great. So two more things I think I would like to do. One is I'd like to equalize, if you will, or bring these two green colors a little bit closer together. They're kind of separate right now. This green is a little bit warmer. This one is a little cooler. And I don't recall it being that separate. These are all the same, from the same patch, the same species of fern, I imagine. So maybe bring those colors closer together. The way to do that is we want to isolate, we want to make a mask or isolate this color from this color. And the perfect tool for that is point color. So I'm going to go down to the color mixer and click on point color. Then we have to use the eyedropper to sample color. And perhaps we'll sample from here. Now to verify or to see what the color is that Lightroom is targeting for us, to make sure it's what we want, I'm going to click on Visualize Range. And you can see it's a pretty good job. This color here, which is the somewhat yellower green, is completely grayed out, which means that we're not selecting any of that. This one here, we have most of it, but I'd like to get a little more of that. So we have our three range selection tools here, either hue, saturation, or luminance. And I'm going to bet that this is probably a hue. We need to shift the hue range to capture more of those greens. So I'm just going to take this box and drag it to the right. And you see that as I drag it to the right, these gray areas get larger, which means that we're going in the wrong direction, right? And we want these gray areas to turn green, which means that we're actually targeting those colors. Remember, everything that is gray now is not being selected, and so whatever effect I add to these ferns is not going to be applied here. So let's move this box to the other direction. And you see that does a much better job. Somewhere around there. Much better. And I widened the box a little bit because I noticed that as I dragged it to the left, we picked up more of the colors here, but then we started to lose some of the colors here because some of those leaves started to get gray. So then I thought, okay, well, we need to select from a wider range of the hues here. All right? And that's how these tools work. Once you sort of get used to what they do, then it becomes much more intuitive. And I'm okay with these little gray areas there. This is just more of a broad color shift. So I'm going to now click on Visualize Range to eliminate that overlay. And then I just want to shift this a little bit more towards that direction. If we go this way, it gets even cooler. And this way makes it a little bit warmer, you see. And now you see that this has a little more yellow in it, and that matches up with the other major fern leaf in the image, which is the main focal point. Okay, so if I turn this off, a little cooler, turn it back on, a little warmer, and I think that does a nice job. Okay, so now two more things, I think. One is I would like to equalize these leaves a little bit, even them out. And really, it's only this one here that looks a little brighter. I'd like that to be to stand out a little less so that it's more of a pattern instead of one being brighter. It almost looks like I brightened it on purpose. Don't want it to stand out that way. So the easiest way to do that is just press K to create a masking brush. And then I will pull down the exposure on this brush, maybe -30, -0.30. And we can just apply this. Like so. And that looks a lot better. And maybe pull it down even more a little bit. Right there. Now here's a little advanced tip. I'm pulling this down more and more. Maybe too much, maybe around there. Okay, I'm comparing it to the ones next to it. So like there's a nice progression here. But I also applied it down in here at the same strength, and maybe this got a little bit dark. So I'm going to press Option, which now enables an erase brush. But if I apply the erase brush at a flow of 100, then it's going to remove that mask completely, which is going to make it brighter again. I just want to remove it a little bit so that we get a more even darkening of that entire leaf. So I'm going to drop the flow in the erase to 50. I'm going to push the feathering up. I usually use the feather at 100. It was down to 50 for whatever reason, whatever I was doing before. And then now I will remove a little bit of that. And you see here that this gets a little brighter. So our mask here has a gradation, darker in the top and then less as we move down. Okay, I'm happy with that. Remember that this mask that we applied here, even though I used exposure to make it a little darker, we also have some potential color adjustments. So this would make it cooler, more like these over here, and the other way makes it a little bit warmer. And so I'll stop right there. All right, one more adjustment, I think, which is I'm going to use a radio filter here, see what it does, and give you a chance to see how I would use it. Radio filter really just to create I could darken the corners with the vignette, but the vignette does create darkening on all four corners the same. It's all equal. And the radio gradient allows us to create potentially a vignette that's a little bit different. One quick tip I can give you for this is that I want to zoom out so that I can apply this radio gradient beyond the edges of the picture right here. And you can't pull it into the UI here. You'll see what I mean. Let me show you. So if I click on Create New Mask, Radio Gradient, and I'll pull this out like this. And we want to make it longer. And I also want to rotate it. So I have to rotate it right down here. Not this dot, because that changes the shape, but this second dot rotates it. And I'd maybe like to pull the handle here, but you see I can't. But if we zoom out, that's Command minus, then I can see that handle again. Something like that. And then I'm going to brighten it a little bit, so that brightens the center. We could do it the other way as well. I can pull it down and then invert. And that's actually probably a little bit better. And you see that our vignette, right, is darkening more over here and over here, not as much over here. So I can, this center area here is where the effect is its strongest. And so that's why I wanted to use a radio filter, because I just don't want the center. I want kind of along that leaf. So we can actually drag this out a little bit more. All right, that's the effect that we're achieving here. And maybe a little bit more on the edges. So you see now as I pull the exposure down, we get more darkening over here, and not really very much on these sides. And that gives you very nice aesthetic darkening. Really, it's an effect that is working with the composition itself. Okay, and I think that is pretty much it. Now that I've zoomed out, I've actually noticed one little more speck back here that's bothering me. So press Q. I can do this with the heel, and I'll click in there like that. And I think I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm going to press the / key before and after. Press Y. We'll zoom out so we can see everything. There we go. Press L. Again, we can see the before and after, and then I'm going to press Y again so that we just see our final image.